any individual who wants to be a teacher can be a teacher who can have an impact on any student.
It sounds like special education serves as such a versatile role. It takes a different person, I think, to really excel with it. Is that pretty much on the ball?
I think so. I think it's complex. I think I personally hold the belief that any individual who wants to be a teacher can be a teacher who can have an impact on any student. Although I do think there has to be certain mindsets, that you come with, but those I believe are consistent across all kinds of teaching. But where I do agree more with you is that there are additional and different types of challenges in the field of special education for a teacher. So it does require, on top of the analogy I usually use is when I'm telling people about special education is that you can be a pilot who drives or who's piloting a little Cessna airplane because you're just learning how to fly, and then you learn how to fly, and then now you're a proficient pilot. You can fly the plane, but you still wouldn't want to, or nobody in their probably in their right mind would put you in an F-16. That's a different type of a jet altogether. And so there's special types of training you require in addition to the basic pilot training that you require to be piloting that type of an aircraft. It's much more sophisticated. So I think, not to again oversimplify the role of a general educator, I do think special education, as denoted by its very title, is a specialized individual, like a person who brings in special expertise that has to be built on top of the general teaching models and general pedagogy. So it can't be what all the general educators do, and it can't just be a separate thing that you do on your own. It has to be something that is built upon a strong foundation of effective teaching practices, but then it creates a specialization, which means that you can work with individuals who display differences in their ability to receive information, to process information, and to remember information and to apply information. So you have to know specialized ways, and you have to have specialized tools, kind of like the F-16, to deal with very special kinds of situations. It's not just for the general public. It's actually a very specialized way and requires specialized expertise.
Do you think a large part of it as well is having a lot of patience?
I think so. I think patience is a virtue in general in teaching. And I have been into many classrooms in my previous job when I was a professor, and one of the things I had to do was be in a lot of classrooms of my students. So my students were teachers, and I had to go and observe them. And all of them were special education teachers, but I also got to observe many teachers who were general educators. And patience is required in every single classroom, because again, children are human beings and they're going to be different. You can never predict 100% what children will do or say or act or how they would behave. So anything and everything that is related to teaching requires patience. Now, the degrees of patience may differ. Now, this is where, again, to agree with you, there's a different degree of patience, perhaps, that is required. And more important than patience, I think what's required is empathy in a role of a special educator, because you have your models of thinking and frameworks of thinking when you come in, and a lot of teachers have preconceived notions of how teaching is and what it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to work and how students are supposed to learn and what is typical. And therefore, one of your mindsets has to be of flexibility and of constant learning, because if your expectations are challenged, that's when you rely on that extra patience, because the models of your thinking are inaccurate. you realize in that moment. And when you see your model not really working, then you have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the child and empathize and begin to uh, analyze your own actions through the eyes of a child. And I think that is a harder thing to do, and that is not as, perhaps is not as commonly required by a general educator. I'm not sure, but perhaps. But I think it's definitely required a lot in the special education, because every child, depending on their strengths and needs and whatever particular cognitive disability they might be facing and working through, you have to be able to understand how they're experiencing the world. And you do that by putting yourself in their shoes somehow, and you do a lot of thought experiments. And that's probably more required more in a special education role than in a general education role.